Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Thursday, the first day of October. Here we go. Today I want to tell you a halacha that has to do with, I don't know if it's applying all over the place, but here on the East Coast, there have been some rainy and stormy nights, and some rainy and stormy nights ahead, and it's going to possibly affect the kosher standing of your sukkah. Let's explain. First, let's explain a rule called dofen akuma, which means kind of a slanted wall. Now, what that means is, let's say you have four walls to your sukkah, let's say, and one of the walls of your sukkah is your house, because your sukkah is right up against a deck on the back of your house, and the fourth wall is actually the wall of your house. Well, that's fine. But what sometimes happens is over the back wall of your house there's a gutter, and the gutter is not proper schach, of course, and if it's covering over any of your schach, that area of your schach is kind of like ruined by the gutter that's above it, but it does not ruin your sukkah in any way, shape, or form, because we bend the wall. What that means is we consider your house wall as if it reached over to where your schach is, not to where the gutter is, but over to where your schach is. And so even though your wall is not quite touching the schach, but we allow it some bend, and we consider it as if it bent to where your schach is. So it doesn't matter that your wall is really going straight up to a gutter, which isn't proper schach, because we halachically bend your wall and consider it as if it reached your schach, which is just a little bit away. How far do we stretch this rule of dofen akuma, of the bent wall? We actually stretch that rule a lot, much more than you would expect. We are willing to stretch that rule all the way up into 4 cubits. A cubit is from the bottom of your elbow until the top of your middle fingers. And that's, some people estimate that it's somewhere between 1.5 to 2 feet. So dofen akuma can be all the way up to almost 8 feet. So we are willing to bend your wall over to where the schach is to consider it kosher, based on the fact that, well, the wall is here and the schach is here, but we consider it as if it bent over to where the schach is. And we're willing to do that for a number of feet but listen carefully, it's not always going to apply. That's if the schach that you're under is improper schach. But here's what happens sometimes on a windy night. Sometimes some sukkahs get jostled around. Some sukkahs went down here in Baltimore last night. But sometimes a sukkah just gets jostled around such that the schach moves away from the wall. Okay? Now that's different. What we've just been talking about is that we're willing to bend over a wall to, avoid the pasul schach, the improper schach, over to where the kosher schach is. However, if what you're dealing with is not pasul schach, like schach that's invalid, but you're dealing with empty airspace, then the allowance of allowing the wall to be considered as if it's touching that schach, which it isn't, is no longer using the rule of bent wall. It's using a different halachic rule called lavud, which means that we attach two areas, even though they don't quite attach to each other. We halachically consider them attached. But that rule is used over much shorter spans. The rule of lavud is only good for 3 hand breadths. This is a hand breadth. That's about 4 inches. So altogether, when we use this rule of my wall is considered touching the schach, even though there's airspace there, we're only willing to say that up to the point of about 12 inches, which is not so much, right? Just 1 foot. So we're only willing to consider my wall as if it touches my schach, even though there's airspace there. We can only do that up to 1 foot. Now you watch on a windy night, it can sometimes happen that your schach can move away by more than 1 foot from the nearest wall, and that wall, if this happened across the whole wall, then that wall pretty much is like disconnected from your sukkah now. And if you only had 3 walls, well, now you only have 2. I know you see a third wall standing there, and it is enclosing you, but it's not really attached by that 1 foot margin to the schach. So I hope I haven't confused you, but what it does mean basically is after a windy night, you better check very carefully that your schach, make sure that your schach pulls back over to where it belongs next to the walls, because schach that's too far away from the walls, causing a nice big airspace, can cause a problem to your sukkah. If I've confused you, at least I'll know that you'll be safe on that rule. If you see big airspaces in your sukkah after some windy times, fix it, okay? Because big air spaces in your sukkah can cause a problem. That we can say clearly. So look out for air spaces. If your schach has jostled around, move it properly back into place. And whether you can do that on Yom Tov is a whole other big question. So we're not even discussing that. But on Chol HaMoed and not Shabbos, move your schach back to where it belongs. Get rid of those big bald air spaces. Thanks for logging on, and log on again tomorrow. Hope you have good weather where you are. Bye-bye.